Everyone, welcome to Cinema Safari. Today we're entering the Bone Temple, talking about 28 years later, the Bone Temple. Now, this is a direct sequel to 28 Years Later, which was released just last year. They were filmed back to back, and the events basically just tie right into that film. It was directed by Nia DaCosta, and we see Ralph Fiennes, Jack O'Connell, Alfie Williams return from the last film. They're joined by Aaron Kellyman, Chi Lewis Perry, along with several other actors involved with this film as well. So it's a pretty big film. They have pretty big plans going forward in the series with a potential third film. So we're going to be talking about all that. And yeah, I'm excited to just dive right in. So stick with us as we enter the Bone Temple. So 28 years later, the Bone Temple. It is the fourth film in the 28 Years Later film series. After 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, the first 28 Years Later, and then this one, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. It was directed by Nia DaCosta, written by Alex Garland, who I believe has written I don't think he wrote the first two films, but he wrote all the 20 Years Later films, so he's also attached to write the sequel to this film. You see Ralph Fiennes, Jack O'Connell, Alfie Williams, Aaron Kellyman, Chi Lewis Perry, star in the film. Ralph Fiennes, Jack O'Connell, Alfie Williams are reprising their roles from the previous film. Ralph Fiennes is Dr. Ian Kelson, who's a former GP dedicated to memorializing the victims of the epidemic outbreak. So he kind of runs the Bone Temple in the film, where he memorializes everyone that has fallen ill with the virus and all of the infected. Jack O'Connell is Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, who is a psychopathic gang leader who styles himself after Jimmy Savile from the earlier films. Then Alfie Williams returns as Spike, who's a teenager. He's on a personal quest on the mainland to, figure stuff out in the film, and gets involved with the Jimmies, specifically Jack O'Connell's character, and goes from there. So in the film, we also see Cillian Murphy, who played Jim in the very first film, 28 Days Later. He returns at the end of the film, makes a cameo leading up with his daughter Sam, leading up to the events of the planned third film. So he's coming back. That's the intention they're doing, to bring him back and get him more involved with the story going forward with the third film. So 28 years later, the series overall, it's been very well received. I think the first film, they've all gotten very critically been very good. The first film was about like high 80s on Rotten Tomatoes, along with the third film that came out last year. 28 Weeks Later is the lowest received in the series, and it's at like a 78, so it's not even that low. But I mean, compared to everything else, it is the lowest. But and then the Bone Temple has received pretty close to universal acclaim. It has like a 93, 94 on Rotten Tomatoes and like an 80 on Metacritic, I think it's called. So it's pretty close to universal acclaim. But yeah, the whole series has been met with a very positive feedback, both critically and with audiences. And I think a big part of that is because unlike some other like zombie apocalyptic films and shows that we've seen in the past, with some exceptions, of course, this series it's written well. Great performances, strong performances, especially in this film. Ralph Fiennes, Jack O'Connell definitely have like standout performances. Well, the rest of the cast, like, it definitely has overall like a strong cast, strong performances, but the two of them especially really kind of stand out in this film. But the film, like the series overall, definitely has like a strong story, which I think in some ways over emphasizes I don't know if that's the word, but kind of overshadows the fact that it is like a zombie horror movie. Because sometimes in these types of movies, like the audience, for this type of movie that enjoy this type of movie, they want to see that gore, that like zombies like attacking people, that kind of stuff, which we definitely get. The Bone Temple, I think, is the most gory film in the series. They definitely step it up in that respect from even the last film that came out last year. So you definitely get a lot of that for fans of that kind of thing. You get a lot of the apocalyptic aspect of it, but it does have a strong story, strong messages in the story, which just adds another layer to it, which I think is part of why these films are so well received and successful. And I'm excited to see where they continue to grow going into the planned third film, whenever it actually does come out. I know Nia DaCosta isn't set to return for that one. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. The director who directed the first 28 Years Later is returning to direct, or at least attached to direct the sequel. But a lot of people also were excited when this film got announced because they were excited for Nia DaCosta, who directed this film, because a lot of fans for that. And it looked really good. It had a great direction, great cinematography, I think. Great story, great acting. So overall, all around, really good film. Especially releasing, just a year after the last film. They were shot back to back, so intentional for that. Yeah, but it was just a great film. Also, like releasing it in January, a lot of films in January, February, like the beginning of the year. This is like the slow period for films. So films that are released this point in the year aren't necessarily films that a lot of people are talking about as like some of the stronger films of the overall like film year. But so far this year, we have gotten some like pretty strong films that have been released within the past like week or two. So it's definitely kicking off the year in a positive way, a very strong way. And if this is what we're getting right now in January, I'm just excited to see where we're going to continue to get and go throughout the year, because there's a lot of big releases this year that are coming out throughout the year: May, June, July, December, November. A lot coming out, a lot to look forward to. And if this is how we're kickstarting off 2026, it's going to be a great year. I'm excited for it. So the Bone Temple did open over, I think, the 4-day weekend. This weekend, or this past weekend, Martin Luther King weekend. So holiday weekend did slightly underperform at the box office, didn't really reach initial like projections. It did underperform with what the Bone Temple, or not Bone Temple, the 20 Years Later made last year in its opening weekend. I believe for its US domestic opening, compared to last year's film, which debuted to 30 million, this one debuted to a little less than that. I don't know exactly how much it made in its opening weekend. I think domestically it made about 15, 16 million in its opening weekend. So about half of what 20 Years Later made last year, which maybe not be the best sign, but you still have it still has that strong fan base. I think a lot of people who are watching it are saying it's really good. They're enjoying it. So I think like also it might be one of those films that does better like in its second or third weekend after some people see it, word of mouth goes around like that the film is great, worth the watch. So I think maybe it's going to be one of those types of films, at least box office wise. But we'll wait and see. Is a direct continuation of 20 Years Later. It ups the gore, deepens the dread. So like the critical like analysis is, it's finally adored by Anita Costa's unnerving direction as well as Ralph Fiennes and Jack O'Connell's inspired performances. So definitely a lot of positives in the film, especially for this type of film, zombie apocalypse horror film. Definitely get that gore that people kind of expect from this type of film, along with a great story, like I said before, strong story. So overall, a lot of good with the film, a lot of positives for this type of film that people who enjoy this will really get what they're expecting, what they pay for this type of film, I believe. So going forward, there is this is part of the planned trilogy, so a 20 Years Later trilogy as part of the overall film series. So Garland is serving as screenwriter for all three of the films. David Boyle, who directed 20 Years Later, that's his name, he confirmed that he would be directing the final film in the trilogy. The third film will only be produced, apparently, I guess, if audiences go and see the second one. So having that last film in the series will depend on if the Bone Temple, succeeds, turns a profit, so to speak, at the box office in its full run. So we'll have to wait and see if that third film is actually happening. They have it set up story-wise to go right into it. They definitely know exactly what they want to do. I think as audiences who have watched the Bone Temple saw that ending, kind of know in certain degrees what route they're trying to take with a third film and concluding the planned trilogy if that third film does get made. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to see where they go with it and all that. So in the third film, we will get Cillian Murphy returning as Jim from the original film in the series, and which would be a big thing if we do get that, along with maybe a couple other surprise cameos would be pretty cool, I think, but we'll have to wait and see. For me personally, I'm not a huge fan of these types of films. I did 28 years later, I got through about half of it, and then I just had to like kind of leave based on like a certain scene in that film. I couldn't do it. You know, I'm not a huge fan of like intense gore and stuff like that. I just can't sit through that. But the Bone Temple, I gave it a shot because I heard like it, you know, it is a great. I heard a lot of positives about it. Um, Especially these films do have a really good story, I think. So for that aspect of it, I did want to try to watch at least as much as I could of it in theaters. Um, Minus the gore, which there is definitely a lot of gore in this film. So it was not easy to get through, and I didn't get through all of it. But I did as much as I could. But it definitely is a good film. With that being said, just because I couldn't get through the gore part of it, story wise, at least for me, it is a great film to watch. It was well shot. It looks really good on the big screen. So for those aspects of it alone, I'd say it's definitely worth the watch. If you're like me and you're not great with gore, it might be a hard watch, probably would be a hard watch, but it's definitely worth at least an attempt, I think, if nothing else, just for the story and the look of it. Strong performances, strong acting performances. So it definitely has a lot of, you know, positives of, you know, things that you do want to watch for it. Definitely reasons to at least give it an attempt to watch. If you're a fan of gore, it's definitely the movie for you. So either way, I'd say give it a shot. There's a lot of reasons to go see this one, I think. So with that being said, we are going to wrap up today's episode. So 28 years later, The Bone Temple is the fourth film in the series. Definitely a strong film. Best reviewed film in the series so far. Potentially furthering the franchise with a planned third film to round out the years later trilogy, and we'll see if that is the end of the whole like series together. I don't know. But they're planning to bring back Cillian Murphy in the third film after his cameo at the end of this film. So they definitely have the groundwork laid out for a third film and potentially continuing beyond that if they choose to. Um, but I think it's all that kind of dependent on how the Bone Temple performs at the box office during its run. It did underperform, like I said earlier, in its opening weekend, about half domestically of what 20 years later opened to last year. Um, so we'll just have to wait and see on that. The series overall is very has been well received critically and by audiences. So um, that aspect of it is definitely there where it definitely could continue on. So we'll just have to wait and see. Um, so I'd like to hear what you think. If you like the Bone Temple, if you've seen it, how it compares to some of the other films for you. If you're excited to potentially get a third film, see some of those characters come back, who your favorite characters are, stuff like that. Comment in this video. Also, if you're not already, subscribe to the channel, stay updated with our future episodes, and follow us on social media if you're not already, Instagram, X, and thank you for your support as always. Have a great day. We will see you next time.